I removed that, and it just barely squeezed in like it was meant to be.
Hello and welcome to the bottom of the internet. This is Another Dead Pixel, the podcast that has never had more than two people on it at one time. My name is Nick. I am your host. Here with me today, one of the four ramen kings of Tokyo. It's Joe. Joe, how you doing tonight?
Doing all right. Yeah, that's about right. I do know myself a good bowl of ramen.
What would you say is the perfect bowl of ramen? Could you describe it for us, please?
All right, that's a loaded question. It really depends on time of day, season, humidity factor, because some people really like to have a good yuzu ramen for the hot muggy days because that little splash of yuzu just makes it nice and refreshing. Uh, During a nice a cold evening, I actually prefer something with a little more creamy broth. Uh,
Mm,
Generally speaking,
mm.
your noodles should always be a little on the undercooked side, al dente, because me personally, that's how I believe it. You don't want to risk your noodles getting soggy, man. That's just gross.
Yeah,
So yeah.
because I mean, they are gonna sit in the soup, so they are gonna get a little bit more soggy, more soft, I should say, and you don't want to cross that soggy threshold. So you're right, and that does make perfect sense. Cool, man.
The chashu, that's where it's at, man. So for those who don't know, that's the meat, the slice of delicious pork, or some people do different specialties, but yeah, the meat really does make the difference.
I have a question. Do you drink the broth at the end?
Always,
Gosh.
unless if it's poison, like if they for some reason made it way too salty,
Oh man.
I've had to put it down because I'm like, no, this is, I can tell this is going to be too much salt content for me for like the rest of the week. But generally, then that's just like a bad bowl of ramen. But yeah, dude, if it's delicious, then have at it.
I remember when I was in Japan one time. I was eating ramen and I started to drink the broth, and one of my Japanese friends was like, "We don't usually drink the broth." And I was like, oh, what? Okay, well, I do. Because I was starving because we'd been walking around all day, and I hadn't really realized the portions that I was going to be getting in Japan. So yeah, I mean, I try not to drink the broth in like cup ramen or just like the grocery store top ramen, whatever. Because that's that's pretty much just straight MSG that you're drinking. But I don't know, like a real ramen shop, I might do it. I might do it.
No, man, it's like I said, if it's delicious, fucking who's gonna stop you? We used to have this little great mom and pop shop, not even like 2 blocks away from our house. It was great. It was one of those shops that we didn't bring anyone else to. We're like, no, dude, we can't bring you here because then you're gonna bring other people. Like
Mm,
this is our joint.
your secret
Uh,
spot.
or we're gonna bring you here, but that's only because you're here visiting, and then you're gonna go back on an airplane and never come back here again. So yes, we will now invite you to the little mom and pop store, which is literally the first floor, back half of their house. So they literally take off their shoes to go into their actual house. So like, yeah, we would bring them back
That's when you
gifts
know.
from when we went to different omiyage. Different snacks and stuff like that from all around. We're like, yeah, we just came back from Kyoto. Here you go. Here's some of the, and then on our birthdays when we show up, they're like, yeah, here, like just randomly, one of their son who was about our age happened to visit, brought cakes for them, and then when the son left, they quickly came out from the back of it. Here, have some cake, and we're like, oh, you guys are great.
That's awesome. That is
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah, that's how you know you're in the right spot is when you're in a restaurant in the back of somebody's house. That's really cool. Uh, all right, man. So I am gonna buy a TV tomorrow.
Oh, you're pulling the trigger. All
Pulling the
right.
trigger. It is a CRT TV, about 20 inches.
At least that one you can probably carry by yourself.
I can probably carry it by myself. I am buying it off of Craigslist, so if I get murdered, you'll know I got murdered by Craigslist. Um, yeah, I'm actually considering. I'm considering getting into a little bit into retro gaming. Not fully, but I'm sure everybody says that when they start. I actually have a plan to play a couple of choice PS2 games, and I decided that I'm going to try to go ahead and do it the the right way, or play it on a real PS2 with a real CRT monitor, CRT TV, and yeah, because I mean I know that I can emulate, but I don't know, I feel like I would just want to experience a couple of these games that way. Also, I do want to kind of collect some of the old consoles while they're still available. Fortunately, since they sold literally like 50 billion PS2s, you can get a PS2, even a fat one, they're pretty common. They're pretty much everywhere. You could spend, like, I'm looking around, you can get one with the box and a controller and the cords for like 120 on eBay, and you can do better if you want. But there's some good, but you can get them for like 35 if you really try. But it's just like the actual PS2. It's by itself. But yeah, so I'm looking into getting into that. I'm gonna be. This is actually the hard part. The game is actually going to cost almost as much as the PS2. I'm looking at buying Drakengard 1 and Drakengard 2. Drakengard 2 isn't so expensive. I think it's like 50 to 70 somewhere in there. But Drakengard 1 is hovering around like 80, 70 if you find a good deal, but like $80.
Okay. You only needed, if for the Drakengard series, you only needed one, and you only needed three the purposes that you're looking at. If you're going to be doing the historical aspect of how Nier and the evolution of Nier and how one ending evolves into the other, because I think three evolves into one, then the first game, then it goes to Nier, the forget Nier, just Nier, whatever they called it in the Japanese version. I completely can't
They
remember.
called it Nier. Actually,
Daddy
they did
version,
have both
Daddy Nier
versions.
and Brother Nier. That one, because that's all based off of the third ending of the first one, because the, the dust and everyone getting sick, and that's what that's from, is that. Uh, so yeah, you only need one of three. Are you
That's
getting?
what you would think. But Yoko Taro did work on two. Um, he and his team kind of worked on it, and he like went away. There's more to the story, but basically toward the end they did bring him back on to do some minor stuff. And it is, I mean, you're right though, like it is canonically two is basically just negated. Um, but I think that you know it's I think two might be more important to the Yoko Taro story and the developmental story of Nier, um, at least more important than it seems at first. But I mean, like, I need to play it like either way, just to kind of tag that base, as it were. But yeah, I mean, you're right though. Like, there is, if you're a person out there who's just wanting to, figure out the Nier story, then for the love of God, just emulate the first game and the third game, and then move on with your life. But that's not me. I can't
All right.
can't go
Well,
that
then
low.
if all right, so if you're legitimately going like full on into the getting an actual real monitor, then are you getting just your normal old school Toshiba, or are you actually getting yourself a proper PVM?
No, no. Like, I've looked at
You poser.
I'm a
Okay.
poser. I'm outed. I'm a grifter. Um so I did start to look at, like, I forget what the exact model number is, but there's a particular Sony model that everybody uses for perfect retro gaming, and it is like five. I mean, the ones I was looking at, I didn't do too much research because I was like, "Fuck this," but the ones I was looking at were like $500, $400, sometimes $1,000, if they were large and in good condition. But like, yeah, like I don't really want to go quite that far. What I'm looking at is a Sanyo. I forget the exact model number. It's a bunch of numbers, but it's a Sanyo from 2004. And Drakengard 1 actually came out in 2003, and 2 came out, I think, in 5 or 6 or somewhere around there. So the Sanyo from 2004 would be about right for the time period what the PS2 was built for, and vice versa. So I figured, okay, that's all right. A lot of these are, $70, sometimes $50, but then with like $50, $40 shipping because they're so big and heavy, for a TV that's not even all that big. But this one I actually found on Craigslist in town. So the dude's super nice, and he's actually got a bunch. He seems nice anyway. He might murder me, but he's in town, and I got a couple different ones. So it seemed like a good thing, and it's only like $60. So I was like, yeah, I think I'll go for that. But yeah, it'll be something of an adventure after getting the TV and then ordering the PS2. I still have to. I want to stream with it a little bit, or at least record with it a little bit, and that's kind of its own pain, because it's going to require some magic, and it might increase latency or something like that. But anyway, I'm gonna begin that road.
All right. Well, one of the things I was going to mention was for those who don't want to go down the old monitor route, I have one, but that's only because I happen to have a family member who had one in the basement. I'm like, you're gonna do something with that? They're like, no, we've been meaning to throw it in a garage sale, but we've just been too lazy to get one. So I was like, can I have that? They're like, sure. And it's a 32-inch monstrosity, which
Ooh,
you need like two people to, yeah, you need two people to do it. I had an old uh stereo cabinet, like the old TV cabinet with the shutting doors, like they pull straight forward and they shut. Well, in order to make it fit in that cabinet, I had to remove the doors and the hinges, the rails, and then I on the top there was an old like a downward drop for where you slid the VCR in. I removed that, and it just barely squeezed in like it was meant to be. So yeah,
uh,
there you go. That's where my retro TV is.
hey, at least
Uh,
you got one though. I mean, like it's kind of annoying, and I don't know how much I would. I don't know if I would really get into it if I wasn't trying to learn this stuff. But there are some games that I do want. Besides Drakengard, there's I would like to get an old Shit Shadow of the Colossus, and maybe a few others here and there. But I know like these games are, like they're not, like I've heard podcasters say, um, like that they remember when they were in Walmart and there was a pile of Super Nintendo games for like $5 a piece in a giant bin. Mario, anything that was popular at the time, and it was all right there for $5 a piece. Um, and it's like you you gotta think in those terms, that like whenever you see that stuff just kind of laid out there, in 20 years and 30 years, it's going to be rare. It's going to be rare, and
yeah.
you're not going to want all of it. I mean, a lot of it's going to be shovelware. Like a lot of it is going to be shovelware, but a lot of it's not going to be kept around. So if you like
But I
something,
do I do like the mentality of Vinny Caravello when it talks about collecting. It's like if you're not collecting for the sole enjoyment of having it, and you're just collecting just to the theoretical profit from it,
oh no, yeah,
uh, yeah, then you have to think about, well, that stuff's going to take up space somewhere in my house. Now, if that was going to be taking rent in my closet or in my spare bedroom, you know, how many years of rent is that thing going to owe me before it actually, like, before I could sell it to turn a profit, and will that profit actually be worth it? So I really liked that mentality of that, and I'm like, "Yeah, for sure." I've
Yeah.
also had to tone back my collecting as I grew older because the more I move, the more things go missing, that get damaged, and so on and so forth.
Well,
Uh,
I mean, the way I think about it is like is all the things that I got rid of, sold, threw away as I was moving around. And I really wish I had tried harder to keep some of that stuff. I mean, I've had friends, I've gotten parents with some space. And I just wish that I had taken some of that stuff that would be, it wouldn't be worth that much money now probably, but it would be a good thing to have in a collection or something like that. And I just wish I'd taken more care to hold on to those things. And that's kind of like where I kind of draw the line at it is like, did you already buy it and already enjoy it? Okay, well, how much more trouble is it really going to be to to keep track of it if it's something that you actually got a lot of enjoyment out of? Like, I mean, like I used to have like Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9, discs and in their cases and stuff, and they're probably still somewhere at my mom's house or something like that. But like I know there's other stuff that I have gotten rid of, and it's like, man, I just wish I'd kept it. So I'm just trying to get some of those things before they're gone or really really expensive because we're almost at that point now too.
all right. Well, my quick recommendation then, as someone who, especially spending enough time overseas and rejecting the urge to buy like the bulk cheap bins of cartridges. But I did look hard into like like how much things are going to cost to play it on modern setups. And back then, as of like maybe 10 years ago, it used to be like the FrameMeister was the big upscaler that everyone would use for quote unquote modern TVs at the time. And that sucker was like $400 brand new, and you still, that wasn't a perfect solution, but it got you most of the way there. You'd have to do some other hookup interfaces here and there. So in the end, you'd look at like easily $500 just to make your stuff, your Nintendo run properly, minimum lag on on your flat screen. And then, but the currently the more popular ways to do it is you have the Mister project, but that's not going to be playing cartridges. That's going to be that's an FPGA sort, playing like essentially ISO files or like properly downloaded, dumped ROMs.
Yeah, ROMs.
So it's going to be the closest thing you got to the actual authentic thing without actually plugging in, or damaging your games.
Right.
And they're always building new accessories, new modules for that. So that is, and the community is really rock solid. It's one of the I observe them from a distance because I'm afraid to dive in because once I go in, there is no going back. Um,
Yeah. I mean, like Jeff Gerstmann would always bring that up on the old Giant Bombs. And it was like, I mean, it was cool, but some of the games he would show are just like, gosh, dude, this game is from like 1973, and I just it's a game and it meant a lot to him, but I'm like, dude, this is literally like 8 pixels. Um, and
and
I just not that interested in it.
no, but for a non, I don't believe it's FPGA source. It's just but the open source scan converter was really popular for a while too. Um, so this one's also more or less a home, like built project. But what it does is it lets you, it's an open source scan converter. It lets you take, you can build, people build more programs for it and stuff like that. And it essentially lets you use your LCD TV, hook up old games to it, and it works pretty well. A lot of people are really happy with it. And it was starting to become the other alternative other than the Mister. They're like that was the most mainstream one. And then about a year or two ago, RetroTink had been around for a little bit, but the RetroTink 5 got a really big boost. Got a lot of notoriety. Um, that's like a husband and wife duo, but that one's also supposed to be FPGA uh, based, and that one lets you do. They have a lot of nice. These things have custom options for letting you put in scan lines or letting you how to run things more smooth, or as close to authentic as possible. But yeah, you seriously just hook up your old cables, letting you play your old Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega CD, all that stuff. And they do a really good job. I've heard nothing but wonderful things about them. I have not tried them personally firsthand because once again, these are all anywhere from like $300, for these type of devices. I'm like, I got my original hardware, and I also don't feel the need that I don't think it's necessary to play the original stuff. If I have it, I'm going to great, but I'm not going to go hunt down a rare cart for unless if it has sentimental value to me. I would rather just go ahead and play an emulator. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not above that. So
Yeah, I mean, if you just want to get the experience of the game, you don't have to have it be exactly the same. It's kind of a nostalgia factor, I think. Or certain games probably do require it because, I mean, emulators are not that they're not going to give you the true experience on probably some like Twitch Reflex type games. But for the most part, yeah, that is probably the best way for somebody to go back and experience it. But yeah, anyway, I'll let you know. I'll keep you apprised as to the situation there. Should I survive my encounter with Craigslist tomorrow? So I guess we'll jump right into the news. First up, so today, as we're recording this, um, the Sony announced a price increase for the PlayStation 5 for most of the world, at least most of the major markets. Right now, the United States is not affected, but Europe, Japan, Australia, I believe New Zealand as well, they are all Canada, Mexico, Australia, China, um, Europe, and the UK, and of course Japan are all affected by this price increase. It varies depending on the region, but generally it seems like it would be something akin to $50 US, thereabout. I'm not totally 100% on all of these currency price valuations, but kind of just looking at the euro. The euro is plus 50. The pound is plus 30. Japan is plus 5,000 yen. Australia is plus 50. Things like that. So yeah, they have decided to increase the price of the PlayStation 5. Um, I don't remember if this has ever happened for a mainline console. Do you remember anything like that, Joe, or has it ever happened?
uh depends on what you define as a mainline console because literally like a month ago, this happened. This was news about the Meta Quest or the Oculus Quest, and how they're blaming inflation and such, but they're actually upping the price on that, which was a shame because despite being owned by Facebook, it was actually a really solid piece of VR headset. But as far as mainstream, like any of the consoles, no, none of them really went up in price like this during its lifestyle. In maybe when it's already discontinued, some things became more rare and hard to find. But as a whole, most of the stuff just gets cheaper as time goes on because parts gets cheaper and it's easy to mass produce. So yeah, this is
Yeah,
an interesting situation.
I mean, like, yeah, by like mainline, I kind of mean, the big
No,
three plus Sega and Atari, and some of those older ones, even like the Commodore or something like that. Uh, just dang, I mean, I was like, I've never seen it happen with a console that I really cared about. Um,
no, not midlife. Like coming out with the next iteration. Everyone knows the PS3 debacle. Um,
oh
being
yeah,
like they can get another job and all that stuff. But that was launching a new thing at a
High price.
ridiculous high price, but not doing it like, yeah, all right, cool. Now we're just gonna milk you guys for more money because it always goes the opposite direction. It's like, hey, these parts are cheaper now. In fact, we can buy better parts that are at a better cost, and you'll get the savings and a more efficient unit. And we usually will trim it down for you. But no, this is really unique that they're it's a messed up situation, honestly. I think they should just eat the cost and make the fans happy because not everyone has yet to get a system. So,
Yeah, I mean, traditionally, from what I've heard, the manufacturer, or the game company, I guess I don't know what the correct terminology is. Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, they usually sell the consoles for comparably very little profit. That's why attach rate is so important because they actually make a lot of money on the software that they can sell you. So it seems kind of that seems to be the norm. And I would have figured they would have continued to do that. But I was a little. I got to be honest. I was a little surprised whenever this generation came out, and it was $500 for the Blu-ray PlayStation 5. Because I kind of figured it would be like, I don't know, like 550 or something like that, maybe even 600, because inflation has come up in the past 12 years or so, or really more than that, in the past almost 2 decades. So it would make more sense now to charge $600 on the PS5 rather than on the PS3. But so it kind of in that kind of way it makes sense. But I mean, geez, like whenever you come out with the new console, to me it's kind of like the die is cast, man. The price is the price, and you've gotta run with it, or else you kind of risk making people mad. Furthermore, like people haven't been able to get this thing. I mean, I only just got mine famously a couple weeks ago. Um, and a lot of people throughout the world still don't have it. I am kind of curious about the omission of the United States from the price hike. My guess for that is just that they sell really well here, and this might be one of their bigger markets, if not their biggest market, and they may just be afraid of making their biggest market angry. But do you have an opinion on that, or?
um, yeah, it is the fact, Sony recently, within the last little bit, famously stated that the the West, and the US market is more important than the Japanese market,
Yeah,
considering the fact that they were willing to switch the menu schemes for uh, confirmation and cancellation buttons.
yeah,
Because in America, we looked at X as being like the OK, like the checkbox button, while in all Japanese, the basic consoles, the controllers, like for example, Nintendo, A and B was always from right to left because you would read from right to left, and that's why you'd look at something like an Xbox is left to right, A, B, and when you have a like games like the original Metal Gear, you look at the X or the PlayStation controller, a circle means okay, it's confirm, and then the X was a cross, being like cancel, and
or
you're gonna
negative.
it's like
Yeah.
that's so because of that, they're like that was always an argument for a long time. Whenever you played a certain Japanese game, you'd have your brain would have to do that in like Nintendo Switch, like I guess pun intended now.
Oh God.
Um, yeah, right. It just a lucky coincidence, man. I wish I could have
Oh
thought of that
man, you
more
could have
thoroughly.
planted that. You could have, man. You should have saved that for our next news thing. But go ahead.
And yeah, the Nintendo Switch.
Oh,
So
uh,
no, the that's the thing though. When you're using that, or even like the Vita,
yeah.
my Vita, I should say, I bought mine overseas because I wanted it early. I happened to be there on vacation, and I wanted the color. It was great. But every time I used the menu, I'd have to remember to 3 o'clock position circle. That is confirmation button. That's. But eventually, they just recently switched that. they not only switched it, but they like flat out acknowledged like, we're right, the West was right, and that's how it is now. Which a lot of people in the original market were like, why are you doing us dirty like that? You're a Japanese company and you're just gonna literally sweep us under the rug. But so when it comes
Yeah.
to yeah,
Well, I
it's
mean,
just
like
absurd circumstance.
it is irritating to have to switch back and forth whenever I am going from Sony PlayStation over to my Switch. It's like, oh yeah, all the confirmation is on the that 3 o'clock button. So it's kind of an irritating thing, but it's not the end of the world. But you're right. It is a mentality that has changed at Sony. It seems like, and this is just another thing that hones in on the West, specifically the United States, and says you guys are the favored child at this point. We're not going to try to make you mad by increasing the price on this. But yeah, man, like, I mean, how do you feel about it? Like it doesn't really affect us. But like, if you were in Europe or especially like in the UK, uh, well, how would you feel if you were waiting to get a PS5 and then this happened?
So I guess it's one of those twofold things. If you've been waiting this long, you probably have a different thing to play games on. Most likely, you're playing games. If you're waiting for PlayStation only, then you could also go to PC. I mean, that's how I'm looking at it. It's
Yeah,
like everything now. If you're willing to put in the time and just to wait a little bit longer, um, right now Spider-Man just famously came out, and in a few months, Miles Morales is going to come out as well. So that's on the dock for PC. So you don't need the um, the PS5 like you did before, and hopefully you have that other alternative. Now, if you have an Xbox, that's great, but then you're like, well, I want the PlayStation exclusives, I want the
right.
God of War and stuff like that. And so that's where hopefully if you have a computer, you got the best of literally both consoles in the palm of your hand. Um, so that's kind of that's the only alternative. It's like, well, maybe if you don't have anything at all, um, well, you can always invest that extra bit of money into a computer. I mean, there's always that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Microsoft is happy because anything that makes Sony look bad makes them look good. But as we've talked about many times, Game Pass on PC has been wonderful for us and helping us out a lot. So
Do you
yeah,
think?
I don't know. I think I would go. I'm gonna stick with my PC. I was hoping to go for a Pro or a Slim version of the PS5, but
Well,
who knows at the rate they're going.
I'm glad that you brought that up because it just made me think. Like, do you think that with this price hike, that they are planning to put off the PlayStation Slim or the PlayStation 5.5, whatever it's going to be, um, because like if you're going to do a price hike and you're at the same pace as the PS4 Pro, then you got to imagine that a PS5 Pro is coming out fairly soon. At least most people would. So if if they're going to do a price hike, most people, to me, would think, well, I'll just wait for the PS5 Pro. But if they're going to do a price hike, then maybe that's going to be pushed off further than than before.
It's a matter of whether or not they can get the manufacturers the components they need and how bad logistics is at the time.
Yeah.
But say everything's running smooth, uh I think they will still release their point 0.5 model or their Pro model, and that'll probably be as early as they've done something similar where you'd have it in the right before the holiday season. Traditionally, this would be a good time because it's been a number of years. Nothing says they can't do it at a different time of the season.
Yeah.
Granted, you know it depends on what they say because currently Gamescom is going on right now. No new word from that, but it does kind of coincide with the fact that talking about the Pro model, cutting into the news a little bit on something I was going to bring to the table was the new controller that they just announced.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so they have that new DualSense Edge, which is essentially their answer to the Xbox Elite controller. and it only took them way longer than it
I was
should
gonna
have to
say
come
this
out
has
with
been
this thing.
like what, 5 years more since the Elite
Yeah,
controller came out. I don't even know.
they have a new version of the Elite controller, so
Yeah,
like, what the heck, Um,
maybe they just didn't want to
so
look like they were copying exactly, step for step.
it doesn't matter. It's a good thing. They should have copied it because it's
Yeah.
that's how that's things like
Well,
that.
that's Sony for you.
Yeah, it's no, it's whatever CEOs are involved in, like them not wanting to invest the money in the R&D and the research, but that's because they were in the lead at the time. Xbox was doing anything they could to like carve out their own niche and try to get back people that they lost. So that was how they ended last year on or the last generation on a much higher note than they started. That's for darn sure. No, this new controller looks really good for those who haven't seen it. It's the DualSense Edge is more or less the same as the Microsoft Elite controller. It has the switches to help engage the triggers more shallow, or if you want to, you can. It looks like you should be able to swap out the thumb pads for different heights and different so pretty much verbatim. You got paddles on the back.
Right.
So it's if you've seen the Elite controller, you pretty much seen this. The only thing is, it's a PlayStation. If you like your thumbs being on the bottom of the controller, this is right up your alley, and it's going to be. I'm assuming it's going to be really good quality. So
Yeah.
I'm excited about it. I have yet to buy. I'm still running an Xbox 360 controllers on my PC,
Oh wow.
so
I still have
uh,
one. I use an Xbox One controller now, but yeah, I mean those 360 controllers are great.
yeah, I have the old USB dongle you have to plug in, and then I have a bunch of controllers because I've owned. I think I've said it before, but I've owned like 7 Xbox 360s,
Oh yeah,
and only two of which didn't break on me. One I sold, and then
dude,
it broke on my buddy, like 4 years down the road. And then I have my last one that still works, but
he got his
it
money's worth. It's
oh,
fine.
my buddy was perfectly fine with it. He's just like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, he was just fine with it. I'm like, all right, cool. I didn't feel bad because I'm like, that would have sucked if I sold it to him and he'd just get a lemon right out the gate. But
Oh man. You sold him a lemon. Oh, it's so funny. Yeah, that's pretty wild. I kind of forgot about the controller. I looked at it and it looked a lot like a regular, PlayStation controller. Yeah, I guess I didn't look at it too closely, but it looked pretty much the same. Um, but maybe with, I'm sure it feels a lot nicer and stuff like that. Do you know how much the price is going to be on it? Probably like 150, like the other one.
I heard rumor it's supposed to be like 200, but I wasn't 100 there. I wasn't
Come on,
sure about that.
come
That might have
on.
just been comparing it to the. I think there was a different third party makes an equivalent controller, which is about 200.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Scuff, I believe. They make they make different accessory gears and different custom controllers, if I remember right. And so like, yeah, this thing isn't quite up to the same quality as the Xbox Elite Series 2 controller. There's a few things it's missing. You can't change out the D-pad, which is a shame because
Oh,
I absolutely hate the D-pad since the PS4. Probably earlier, actually. I think that I can't remember if it's the same on the PS3 anymore. But I just remember that PS4 D-pad and the current PS5 D-pad, that 4-point directional.
it's like separated, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's separated. So when you and I were playing a lot of fighting games, I remember getting darn near getting pretty bad blisters
Oh
because
yeah, because they poke
of
into
trying to
you.
do a lot of quick motions. Because I like to use the D-pad opposed to the thumbstick when I'm playing a fighting game. Uh, it has there's just I think it's only two paddles on the back opposed to four, and and the only thing is we're not unsure about the battery life, but for the most part, everything else is really interchangeable thumbsticks, um, wireless. It has the trigger locks like I mentioned before. So it is it's a shame you can't switch out the D-pad though. I'm just really bummed about that.
Sony's like, nope,
I will
D-pad's the
just go
best thing
straight
we
with
ever did. This is the perfect D-pad, and nobody can tell us otherwise. Yeah, I mean, like the regular PlayStation 5 controller, I did hear on some podcasts before that it has a pretty short battery life. I don't think it's too short. I think if you're gonna do a pretty good gaming session, like the old days, like 4 or 5 hours, you probably are gonna hit the limit on that, especially if you're probably smashing buttons a lot and fast. But I mean, it seemed to me like it would last about 3 hours before I had to plug in. But I just leave mine plugged in every time I I can go. Every time I go to turn it off, I'm like, I'll just plug it back in if it's dropped by one of the dials. But yeah, well, anyway, I guess we switched over to talking about the PS5 controller. And I guess we're pretty much done with the PlayStation price hike. I do think that's pretty wild. I was very surprised to see that. I was just like, what? But and
Yeah,
then,
it's pretty ridiculous for sure. I mean, it's a gutsy move. I don't really. I really think they should have just ate the price and just dealt with it. I think what it does do though is it does, since it ups the base price. Now, if you
yes,
do come out with the Pro,
yes.
it makes it a whole lot easier to swallow when you put up a Pro for an extra $50 to $100 more. Um,
That
you
is
know,
a
because
very good point, and I was thinking about that before we started talking about the controller, and I lost it. Yeah, that is exactly right. They might be aiming to go for a 6 or 650 price point on whatever PS5 Pro they end up coming out with, and this is like, well, in 2 years, whenever it comes out or whatever, it's gonna be like, well, it's only $100 more than the PS5 regular, uh, but it's like, well, no, it's $150 more than the PS5 that a lot of people
that
bought.
launched, yeah.
That like 10 million people literally bought. So yeah, that is a really good point. I think that
Also, you can be the hero when you release your slim version and you're like, "Oh yeah, but this one's actually cheaper than the current price. We're
five
dropping it by $50."
to
And
500.
people will forget about what the base price was and they'll be like, "Oh, cool, it's cheaper than it was and it's smaller. And what a great deal. Sony, you're great."
Yeah, and everyone just forgets history down the memory hole, like 1984. Yeah, that's probably what's going to happen. I think we called it. You heard it here first, folks. PS5 Slim 500, PS5 regular 550, and I don't even know what we're complaining about. Like, we're in the U.S., it's still $500 here if you can get one. But I am starting to see them more on Amazon and stuff like that. More and more often. So anyway, well, let's move on to the next part of the news because we beat that to death. So the next thing also has to do with PS5, or rather Sony. Sony being sued for £5 billion for ripping people off on PlayStation Store. Quote, ripping people off. So they're being accused of anti-competitive strategy that apparently is the industry standard. I'm pulling this from Eurogamer.net. So this is a legal claim that's being led by ex-managing director of which UK, Alex Neil, and was filed with the Competition Appeal Tribunal last week. So basically, he is saying this sounds. This sounds so weird, but he says the game is up for Sony PlayStation. With this legal action, I am standing up for the millions of UK people who have been unwittingly overcharged. We believe Sony has abused its position and ripped off its customers. And he says a bunch of other things that don't really have anything to do with the price that Sony is charging. And then in the article by Eurogamer, they bring on a guy. They pull quotes from a guy named Richard Hoeg, host of a video games industry legal podcast called Virtual Legality. And he brings up 6 points in quick succession for why this lawsuit is going to be pretty tough for them to argue. Rather, the accusers, I don't know the exact legal term, to argue, because it sounds like it's pretty spurious to me. Um, so basically, just a quick rundown of the points that this guy makes is you have first you have the issue that each individual transaction was voluntarily made at the price offered. Second, the prices largely mirrored those across the industry at the time. Third, that the intermediary pricing, which is the 30% cut, was also mirrored by other market participants at the time. So 30% is the cut that Sony gets from every game purchase, I guess. Fourth, although the 30% argument mirrors Epic's in Epic versus Apple, you have a lot of language in that case attempting to distinguish the console markets. So that's like, it's a little bit of an apples to oranges comparison in cases there. Fifth, there's no indication that a change to the 30% cut actually would affect the bottom line customer facing pricing. Sixth, that because the 30% was established before any market controlling position, you have an issue establishing that it was anti-competitive price. So, and then he kind of gives a little bit of a tacit argument for the accusers, kind of saying, or at least kind of saying that the politics of the day might help them somebody to rule in their favor. But to me, it sounds pretty ridiculous. Like I kind of expected to read a little bit more concrete explanation here, and it sounds like, dude, Sony charged what they charged, and people paid what they paid, and I don't really see how it's a competitive issue.
Yeah. No, it's I don't know, when people doesn't matter what you are. When you're successful, people want a piece of that, and they'll find any justification to try to sue you. So that's kind of, it is what it is. I mean, I wish there was a better example of, you know, a a way they ripped you off, essentially.
Yeah,
But because you could choose not to buy it. If enough people chose not to buy it, guess what? Prices would change. But at the same time, there's not like, yeah, you can't really compare it to anything else because competition is selling for roughly about the same price for everything. So are they going to sue, Xbox or anything like that? I mean,
I mean, how many games are PlayStation exclusive?
yeah, only a handful, man. It's just,
So like
you know,
it's a handful that they're not sold for anything higher. You're just only really allowed to, I mean, I guess like $70, in the US, but I don't know what they are in the UK, but they're not sold for that much higher. Not enough to make it like a really big competitive sort of thing. And like 99% of games are sold across multiple platforms. So I'm just like, dude, they're gonna come and break your legs after they bankrupt you in countersuits. So I hope that I just thought that somebody who was going to try something this crazy, aiming for the king like this, they'd have a little bit more. They'd have a little bit more in their arsenal than just they're charging a lot.
yeah. Well, we'll see if what it does in the end, but who knows? I'm not gonna hold my breath though.
Yeah, I'm not going to either. I do hope to find out how it turns out because it seems like it might be actually pretty funny. So next up, we're gonna switch topics and talk about Nintendo here. Basically, DRM company Denuvo is going to be doing some anti-piracy for the Nintendo Switch. Basically, they're releasing an anti-piracy program that let me see. I can't remember which side this is coming down on. I think that it is actually going to be put into the Switch games themselves. so that it will make it more difficult for them to be emulated on PC. Um, and it's kind of, I was kind of surprised that this hasn't already been a thing. Um, but yeah, apparently Nintendo is going to start working with them to get that going. Because I mean, like you're saying, like every time a new big time Switch game comes out, it's running at like 30 frames per second at 720p on the Switch, and then it's running like 4K 60 on somebody's PC somewhere. So it's it makes sense for them to want to block this because back when Metroid came out, I was kind of like, man, why am I playing this on a Switch when I could be playing it, and a really kind of a better experience on some kind of PC. But anyway, so it's I was just kind of surprised that this is the first time, but also not surprised that they're finally doing it.
Yeah, but Denuvo's had so much of a history of bad implementations. It's caused, um, aren't they the ones who had the stutter issue with RE? Was it RE7? When it first came out, because someone had to essentially crack the game. They did, you used a key gen essentially, or you cracked it, and then it let you play the game smoothly. There's been a number of issues
Yeah,
with
there's
it.
been
I mean,
several.
uh, I just I understand why Nintendo wants to keep their property safe. And if it works without causing any trouble with the actual game, then that's fine. Uh, but they just have such a bad track record. I mean, they do a good job, I guess, keeping you from when you're doing like online stuff. I believe that they have it was like a 1 or 2 year warranty saying like, yeah, we guarantee these games won't be cracked for this amount of time, and then their licensing agreement is over, and then that's when they stop updating for the most part because it doesn't become as profitable for the company. Like, why are we going to pay you to keep on protecting us when at this point no one's buying the game anymore, or the very few people are? So at this point, anyone who pirates it, it's negligible.
Yeah,
So
that's their bread and butter is we protect your game for the launch window, which is like the first 6 months to a year, because that's when anybody who actually wants to buy it and is likely to buy it is actually going to buy it, and we have to protect that section so that it's not just easy for people who want to buy it to actually go play it pirated somewhere else. So I get it. It just but the good thing to me is that it doesn't actually it's kind of um well, I don't know. Um, I kind of am confused about how this works, I guess. It protects it from emulation, but does that mean that it's going to is it going to affect it the play on the Switch? Because things already kind of chug a little bit on the Switch as it is. Um, so like if it affects things on the Switch, I don't know if I'm gonna like that at all. But if they really can keep it emulation side only, then it's pretty much, I don't know. It's their products. They can do what they want with it. I just
yeah,
hope that it doesn't
well, don't
affect the
worry,
Switch.
because if you're afraid of your Switch chugging, then this is the perfect time to then upgrade to whatever their new Switch Pro is. There you go. See, it's all up. This is no, once again, this is a running theme now. This is the year of inflation. This is all the companies trying to get more money from you. How are we going to squeeze it? We got to justify us squeezing people. It's like we can't just go up. $100. If we go up $50 increments, it's not so bad. We can't just tell people to drop their systems and go like, "Oh, you're having issues." Well, we are sorry. It does technically work, just not necessarily the way you want it to. But guess what? It works really smooth with our new Nintendo. So go for it, guys.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, Joe, I'd like to take this time to announce another Dead Pixel Pro, where we don't say any dumb shit. We only say the smart stuff. So we're gonna cut all the dumb jokes and puns and ramen talk out, and only give you the exact thing that you actually want, and it'll only be an extra $5 a month, on the
And
Patreon, of
guess
course.
and Nick will speak. Nick will be saying everything in complete monotone. So just good luck staying awake for that.
Yeah, that's my famous monotone voice. Um, so yeah, you're right. Like it is gonna be this Denuvo program is gonna fuck everything up, and then people are gonna be like, why doesn't my Switch work anymore? Well, just in time for the Switch Pro. We are coming out with the answer to your problems. Anyway, I'm pretty curious to see how this pans out, and if it will actually affect anything Switch side. If it doesn't, then I think it's a pretty big success for Nintendo. At least if I was Nintendo, I would consider it a success because them keeping their money, and the user experience not being affected, the proper user experience not being affected, is what they really want. So we'll just see how it ends up going, but something to watch for. The only other piece of news that I had, and this is getting kind of old, but I thought it was interesting. Call of Duty accused of plagiarizing a skin design from Dr. Disrespect's FPS. The new Doomsayer skin is similar to the Deadrop skin used by former Infinity Ward dev Robert Bowling. This is coming from Video Games Chronicle back on August 17th. And if you look at the images, they are different, but they're really, really, really similar. That a lot of the details, the finer details, are a little different. But if you kind of blur your eyes, it's pretty hard to tell them apart. Yeah, I was kind of like, wow, that's pretty bad. I think that Call of Duty has been accused of this before. I think I remember that. Hey, I think we lost you on.
So
There
we
you go.
chose to talk about this last time. Hopefully that I'm back.
We did. Oh my gosh.
So the last time I mentioned it was shoot now I think it was just a little over a month ago. It was sometime in July, if I remember, and that was the same thing happened. It was about a character like that they were accused of plagiarizing again, and this one was supposed to be like a dog skin or something like that, like a
Yeah.
uh, and so that wasn't that there was a time before that where they took an actual model,
So what's going
they
on,
took
man?
photos. So it's low hanging fruit, and gamers are dumb and they won't notice it, but someone does, and then therefore it's cheaper to pay it off. I mean, it's like
Mm,
if people like it, they'll sell it, and then if they get caught, then they'll just pay the people, like, oh, oop, our bad. Here's a little cash. We're still gonna make money on this thing though. Much like car insurance companies or car companies when they're like, yeah, we know this is a fatal flaw. It's easier to pay for those few people who die than it is for us to actually get this whole thing recalled right now. So I don't know, same, but different.
I mean, I'm just thinking like the designer that did this. You know, if you're Call of Duty or you're Activision, and this comes up, and then you're some manager, you see this and you're like, damn it, Billy. And you go over to Billy's desk and you're like, what the hell are you doing, man? Like, I just don't see how this is not a fireable offense. Like you're clearly plagiarizing somebody else's work at a different company, and it's very embarrassing for Call of Duty. Whether or not their players know it, I'm not sure, but to me, it's pretty embarrassing. If I was a manager at Activision, I'd be like, we got to get rid of that guy. That's because it's only going to get worse if we let it go. He's going to lay low for a year, and then he's going to get lazy or get under crunch again, and he's going to do it again.
You know what? It's as far as being embarrassing. Yeah, it might be a little embarrassing, but it is far better than any news that had come out in the last year. So they're like, yeah,
Ah,
dude, just anything to take the heat off of us. Yeah, go. Yeah, some people fucking don't like this. Okay, well that's fine. At least people forget about all the other news that's been going on in the last bit.
you like bring it to Bobby Kotick, and he's like, did he touch her? And like, no, he just he just copied a scale. Okay, fine. He did. If he didn't touch her, then it's fine. Just it's fine. And then he like takes another drink of whiskey, and then like goes back to work. I guess as long as it's not like nuclear DEFCON 1 level sexual harassment, then yeah, it's not that big of a deal to Activision.
Yeah, it was. I can't remember the name of this. There's that old movie that had the whole concept was president got caught doing something he shouldn't have, and then they make a fake war just to bury the
Wag the
news.
dog.
Thank you. I knew it was something dog. I'm like, it wasn't War Dogs because that was that newer movie. Yeah, Wag the Dog. Yep. Was it Dustin Hoffman? Uh, but yeah, it was just the whole concept. Like, yeah, we need to bury the fact that the president did something naughty. So yeah, we're gonna make a whole war and just justify this, and make everything fake and yeah, deep fakes. So it's
Yeah,
actually
man.
pretty relevant to this day.
Pretty poignant now. Anyway, I'm done talking about that. The other thing is that we did have you had a little bit of news.
Oh yeah.
You were going to talk
So
about a new monitor from Corsair. Is that right?
yeah, so a couple outlets recently got hands on with the this new Corsair monitor, and this thing is going to be uh, it's a 45-inch monitor that it's an ultra wide setting, so you're looking at 21 by 9 aspect ratio,
Okay.
and the it's an OLED panel made by LG, so it's all quality stuff. What makes this really unique is it's actually flexible, and so you can make it as a flat 45 inches, but you can actually bend it. So there's actually handles you grab on the side, and you pull it inward to make it into I believe it was an 800R curvature.
Okay.
So which is pretty nice if you like that up close and personal feel, and to be more immersed in some of those games. Uh, I believe was it uh DeBauer, famous overclocker, has done a video on this. Um, Paul from Paul's Hardware,
Right.
and Bitwit, they both had they actually shared a video together, or they have several videos on their own channel. But Bitwit actually hosted Corsair to come over, and they both got to play with this thing, and it's actually a really neat video. So I totally recommend giving them a look, especially if you want to see this thing. Has This is all early prototype models, so chances are the actual stand and some of the visual features will change. But it has a lot of decent I/O ports. It does 240 hertz, I believe it was.
Okay.
It has HDMI 2.1. So when they on the uh, Paul and Bitwit, when they did their videos, they did not do anything about consoles at the time. So I'm not sure exactly how well it's working, but they did mostly PC stuff, and they wanted to see how dark it got. Uh, and so it does run the proper gambit of HDR. It is a solid looking monitor. Has I think two HDMI ports. Has a plethora, like two or three USB-Cs and a couple USB-A ports. So it has what you need. It's a chunky looking beast, but I
I
actually think
mean,
it looks really nice.
I'm kind of curious, like, what is really what is the use case for this? I can't, I can't really imagine for myself personally needing a TV that can switch back and forth. Um, but like, I mean, but then again, if I could only afford one monitor, then I might have some idea of how to make that work. But like, Can you imagine the kind of person
Oh yeah.
who wants to get this?
Hands down. So when you want to do anything game wise, just for yourself, if you're playing anything, you would like that curvature to get more in depth in it. But if you're doing something more like just media content, watching a movie, you might want it more flat, so you can, especially if someone's sitting next to you, because
Yeah.
as it's harder for them to observe if you have a curved monitor. So if you have it nice and flat, it'll provide much better viewing angles. Some people like it when it comes to, it depends on how you like to do your productivity work. Uh, Now, I'm not sure how it's going to affect the color quality. This is supposed to be uh, pretty good for color accuracy. So if to do actual good color grading, I'm not sure how if what it ranks on if it does RGB coloring, but I believe it was supposed to be like 99% or something like that of the other color spectrum. So it is, you can do actual like other productivity work on it. But when it comes to this, what makes it unique is the fact that, if I wanted to show you something, I can easily just pull it out, and that, you don't have to. I can see this being like if you have a home studio setup. That way, you don't have to pull up your chair next to me all the time. But if you're just on the right angle, like, hey, just push it flat. There you go. You can. They did show that you can make it into like a J configuration. So if you only want to pull one side, you can do that. I'm
All
not
right.
really sure what the point of that is, other than I'm gonna be looking at something. Maybe I don't want you to look at that. A little courtesy curtain. I don't know. But that's it's pretty silly, but you can do it if you want. Uh,
Huh.
so I mean, this I the name of it's not Xenon Flex.
Okay.
Is I believe is what the name of this thing is going to be, and it is supposed to be FreeSync Premium certified, and it's supposed to be compatible with NVIDIA G-Sync. So you'll, like I said, you'll be getting all those nice features with it. And
Did you say the size that they were looking for on this?
this is a 45-inch.
45. Okay, that's pretty good size, especially for a monitor. That's a good size monitor. Um, and then I mean, do you see like there being a problem in the future, like a couple of years down the road, with if you're somebody that shifts it back and forth fairly often, with I don't know, something going wrong with that curvature?
Okay, so I forget the number of bends they said. They mentioned it in those other videos, so by all means give them a watch. I forget now. It was like something like you can bend, like, the math came out to, you can bend it like 5 times a day, 5 or 10 times a day for like the next like 5 plus years. That's if you did it every single day. Um, but most people realistically are just going to bend it and like leave it for a long period of time. And then on the rare occasion, be like, hey, check this out and move it. So I'm not really too concerned on that factor. Granted, it's just all, it's neat. I guess it really does depend on your workstation, right? I don't think a lot of people are gonna have enough desk space for this to be practical.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, but then again, this is in the same headspace of those who own the Samsung Odyssey G9s. The G9s are ridiculously big. You have to have a special area just for those too.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, oh, you know what? I didn't think about it, but if you have it in some sort of uh a vertical stance. So like I know people like the G9s that way, so they can have this giant thing with all their Twitter feed or
Oh,
whatever
jeez.
comment section. So you
Just
can
a
have it
strip
that
of a
way, and
TV.
then you can have it curving over the top. So
Oh man, that is a good use. So you could like look up and it curves, so you're not like, oh, it's stretched too far. That's actually pretty smart. That's actually the best use case that I've heard so far for only one side being flexed in. That's pretty cool though. Did they say what their price point is for this?
I've not heard of a price point yet. So
What do you think it'll
uh,
be?
that's a good question. Well, monitor spaces are really different, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, you can get what you'd pay for a TV for like the C1s, which is granted last year's model, but you can get the 48 inch for 800. I think maybe I don't know what the current price is, but I'd say at least 1,200 or max 1,500 for the C2s, for
Yeah.
the same size for the 40 inch. So monitors easily go like this would be over 2 grand, is my guess.
Yeah, man, that's a lot.
I mean, for some reason, monitors have always been more expensive, but granted, you're talking in theory, you're always getting the better response times. You're not you're paying, you know, you're paying for what you're getting in fact for gaming reasons, but
Yeah.
a 4K monitor is always more outrageous than a 4K TV.
Yeah.
So,
That's true. That's true. Okay, man, that's pretty cool though. I'm curious to see what they'll end up selling it for. If you're thinking 2 grand, then it probably is a pretty nice looking monitor. You said 140 or 240 hertz.
I believe it was 240,
Dang. Okay, that
and
is good.
yeah. So I mean, but it's supposed to have the HDMI. So it's 240 hertz, and it's supposed to have the HDMI 2.1. So anyone with a a current generation console can take advantage of at least being the full bandwidth and being able to have the VRR or yeah. It's getting late, so my
Oh,
mind's kind of going on that
all
one.
the
Sorry.
R's, all the V's and all the
Yeah,
R's.
the variable
Yeah.
refresh rate, and
Okay.
it's supposed to and it's supposed to help you out on that. So yeah, this will most definitely be your entertainment, hub. It's big enough to enjoy any media,
Yeah.
uh, but it has the fast enough speeds for any good NPC. So it's really going to be competitive, so long as if the price is right, I guess. But I mean, PC gamers especially, they're always willing to blow a lot more money than makes sense.
Yeah,
I
man.
know I've done the same. So
I always see those badass setups on Reddit and stuff. I'm like, gosh, that's cost like freaking $20,000 just
I'm
in
waiting
the.
for the one person to have the full 360 wrap on this thing. They're like, yeah, I
Oh,
completely circled myself, but thanks to the way they bend, I can literally open it like a door and squeeze out.
oh, we're one step closer to our holodeck nightmare. Oh man, wow. Okay, now let's go on to something else. All right, next up,
Smooth.
what have we been playing? So I'll go first. I'll volunteer. So finally got a chance to dig into the PS5. I was kind of stuck on Switch with Xenoblade Chronicles 3 coming out, so I just had to. That was the plans. I just had to do that for like 20 hours, but I kind of set that aside. I've been getting into my PS5 and playing Horizon Forbidden West. Man, this game is really good. This game is very good. I didn't play the first one, so that is the way that I have to talk about my experience as somebody that kind of watched that game kind of from afar. And even back when it came out, I was like, man, that is a beautiful game. That is a beautiful, amazing game, and I haven't seen anybody else do that graphically yet. And Horizon Forbidden West is more of that. I think in this new generation, I haven't seen. I mean, and I've seen quite a few games, at least on YouTube and stuff. But I haven't seen any games do what this game is doing, be as pretty as this game. I thought Elden Ring was quite pretty well designed, um, but man, Forbidden West just has so much detail um, in everything visual. It's like the way that Aloy moves, the way that all the other characters move, the cutscenes look amazing. They're just everything just looks like it's in like some kind of perfect world. The frame rate seems to be great. I'm not really somebody that really looks for that really hard or notices it when it drops too much, but it seems like it's working great, and that like the load times are almost non-existent. It loads super fast the few times that it does load. man, so just like for all the visuals, it is really beautiful. Um, the gameplay, kind of playing through it, is great. It was a little bit daunting at first. I was kind of like, whoa, they're kind of asking me to do this and that and hold this button down and aim for these certain like tiny parts and stuff like that. But after I got used to what was going on, um, and got a handle for the sneaking around, the melee, the bow, the different things that they have you use in combat. After I got a little bit more used to it, I was like, okay, this is actually really cool. The combat is very, I don't know what you'd call it, um, nuanced and dynamic and very interesting. I'm playing it on normal, and that seems to be about right. I could probably do with it being a little bit harder. I haven't died very much at all, but they do give you like a bunch of options for difficulty. They have like normal. I think they have two easier ones below that, and I think they have three harder ones above it. And I can't even imagine what the very hardest one would be like. I bet it's pretty wild. But gameplay wise, it really starts to fit together. I mean, I don't know what the first one was like. I'm sure it was probably pretty similar, but you're sneaking around, you're you're picking off targets kind of as much as you want to, as much as you can, using your bow to bring them down a little bit, confuse them, and then going loud whenever things go sideways. And it's all fun. It's all I don't feel like I'm being pigeonholed into any particular section of like, hey, you really have to be sneaky at this point, or you have to go loud at this point. I feel like whatever is going on, the game is like ready for me to do that, and that's very satisfying. It's definitely very much a video game in that way, and that's something I haven't really played in a long time. I don't really know what that means exactly. I guess a JRPG in a way is kind of like that, but I don't know. To me, not really. Anyway, so this is very much a video game. The story, I am kind of jumping in the middle of all this. The end of Horizon Zero Dawn had a bunch of events, and they kind of plop you in at the end of that, and they're like, "So a bunch of stuff just happened," and I don't, and they give you a big long cutscene at the beginning. Uh, though they do a pretty good job of keeping it succinct. They do give you a cutscene at the beginning, kind of telling you this is what happened just before you came on. So this is what's going on, and this character came in and left, and this character and that, and then they throw you in and you do some stuff. They do a good job of getting you playing and introducing you to some of the characters that you need to know, and then showing you some of the characters that were important in the last game, and then they are like, okay, and then they move you out west, and you start dealing with the things that you've got to do for the new game.
Yeah, so I played a lot of the first game. That one for me was an exceptional good time. A lot of people, ended up falling off of the gameplay, but the story kept them going. I love the story. The story was awesome. As far as the gameplay for the first game, it's a third person open world, uh, very similar to, I would say, the Shadow of Mordor games. So
Yeah.
a lot of hiding in thickets, circling an enemy or getting them to come to you. The first game allowed you to convert enemies into your allies, so you would then reprogram them, the robots, the different machines, and as you um, I forgot what they call them, but as you conquered these facilities, so in different games, it would be like a Zelda temple or something like that. These ruins. You go through, and then you'd be able to get a new upgrade to then hijack, bigger and more ferocious monsters, and that cycle was really fun for me. I was able to, I always grabbed one or two guys and had them just start causing havoc. They'd be my decoy.
It's really cool.
And then eventually, I learned to, if you aim while jumping or sliding, so time would slow down.
Yeah.
At least, so you learn to then start jumping a lot, just so you can get a quicker aim. Like more of a bullet time effect. And yeah, you can hit those glowing parts. Different enemies would then have, different weaknesses. But the funny thing is, if you hunted them enough in the same manner, they started to adapt to you. uh,
Whoa.
because because they were they're all they're all robots, so they're somewhat AI linked. It was one of those hidden game mechanics that no one talked about. And yeah, that game was like they didn't do like exert like they didn't do anything crazy extreme like now they have armor over their weak spots, nothing like that. But they would change up the way
Tactics.
they acted. So that was always neat. I generally like to play those games really stealth, so it's super boring to watch. And then when things go wrong, then I just go super loud and super hot. That's kind of how I like to play it. And I platinumed the first game. And then I did not finish the DLC though. I think what happened was enough time had passed. I finally got to the DLC, and I was just far enough removed from remembering what I was doing. I was like, "Oh crap! I
Yeah.
remember the story, but I was rusty on the way the actual gameplay was, and so then next thing I know, I'm already super high level, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to try to do this, fight these enemies, and I'm like, my skills had gotten rusty,
Right.
so it was hard for me to kind of brute force my way, and it's like, all right, I'll get back to this again eventually, and I haven't. So that is unfortunately. Uh, Really a downfall on my part because I really loved that game. That game, I especially came out right before, um, right before Breath of the Wild came out, and it was unfortunate because I think a lot of people really loved Breath of the Wild, and that it like they moved from one game to the other, and it does give you more. Breath of the Wild gives you more freedom of movement, lets you climb, traverse the world more efficiently, I think, in that respect. But I found what I did in the world was much more entertaining, and the story was so much more superior. So I felt that a lot of people, um, Horizon didn't get its proper due because it just got swept under the rug by the excitement of how good, how different Breath of the Wild was from the previous Zelda games. So I was always one of those championing Horizon. Like you got to go Horizon, that's where I stand.
Yeah. I mean, the playing this game does make me kind of want to go back and play the first one. Because even back then I was like, man, this game is really beautiful. But this one seems to be, building a lot on what the first one did. Um, and yeah, the story's good. It is. I would say that I don't really know too much about what's going on. There's a lot of names of people and types of people, tribes, and stuff like that. That I'm like, okay, that's a name, and I just have to kind of go along, like with it. But they do a pretty good job of attaching, you know, one thing that you're trying to do, one thing you're ultimately trying to do at the very beginning. Immediately, they're like, okay, this is the bad thing that's going on, and this is what we're trying to fix. And so I was like, okay, I can grab onto that. And then the rest is, I don't know, I'm kind of just watching The Empire Strikes Back essentially without seeing a New Hope is sort of what it feels like. But I like Aloy. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about her, but I like the voice actress. I like the acting. I like her personality in general, and the the rigs, the facial animations are spot on, man. Like they're just amazing looking. The game does a really good job of getting you, giving you some story and then giving you plenty to do, but never too much. So it's super cool game, man. I can't recommend it enough. I don't know how much more I'm gonna play of it. There's a couple games coming out. One that you're about to talk about in just a second, but then also Soul Hackers 2 just came out, and I want to play that. I'm not sure how badly because I'm not getting the it's getting good reviews, but it's not getting amazing reviews. So and there's a lot to play. So I don't know how quickly I'll get to it. But I am enjoying this game, and I do kind of want to linger on it. I've only played a little over 12 hours of it, um, and I've really only just broken into the Forbidden West. They sent me out west about 3 or 4 hours in, but I probably could have gotten there faster. But they went ahead and sent me out west about that soon. And then you have to do some stuff to actually kind of break into the official, okay, this is the forbidden part. But anyway, it's a good game, and I'm looking forward to trying to play some more of it. But I think you had a new game that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so I finally did, for the first time in a long while, I bought myself a day one brand new game. Usually I don't have enough time to really enjoy them, so
Woo!
yeah.
Yeah.
It's not really beneficial for me to buy a game day one because I really don't have enough time in my life.
Yeah, it's true.
But this one, uh, not the I did I got this one not because I thought it was gonna be like a new groundbreaking, amazing thing, but I thought this was gonna be the right stupid thing that I would enjoy with my friends, and that's Saints Row, the new reboot of the series. I first started playing Saints Row, really with the third one, because the first one it just was a straight GTA clone, trying to be taken more seriously. The second one was like it was more or less still a clone, but had some really stupid events you can do that was really memorable, like try vandalism, driving around a sewage truck and spraying crap everywhere. Those things were like setting it apart as more of a humorous game than your Grand Theft Autos at the time. And then three, they knew what they were doing and they made it wacky and stupid, but amazingly fun, and it's a great game. I mean, you had Burt Reynolds as the mayor. It's like, eh, like I said, I played this game a number of times with my friends, different groups, different systems, PS3, PC, and I've 100%ed them on all those things because I have a sickness, but also I had a good time playing with my friends. I played at it. The custom character customization is really has always been excellent in those things. I think I made Bruce Willis the first time, and then I didn't. I changed it just enough because one of the voices was a Cockney accent. So I'm like, I'm gonna play as Jason Statham. Yep, that's it. He's my canon Saints Row the Third protagonist from here on out, and it was always super great to do that. I absolutely love those games. So this one, I'm like, you know what? Or I should say, four was a disappointment only because the DLC for three was pretty solid, and one of the DLCs was uh, more or less you drink their poison energy drink and you get superpowers. You become like Dragon Ball. You can do fireballs. You can run fast and run up buildings like a prototype. I don't know if you ever played that game, but yeah, it had great movement, and so it's like the developers like, well, we gave everyone a taste of that, so let's start the next game out like that, and there was just something missing about Saints Row 4. So unfortunately, didn't I never beat it, never even got close to beating it. So this one being straight from the beginning, I'm like, you know what? This isn't gonna this there's no way this can live up to my memory of three. But I think it'll be just dumb enough to play with my friends. And unfortunately, at this point, I have not played with my friends yet.
Not
um,
yet.
it's mostly been I spent a good chunk of this game with their it's a free download, which is the Boss Factory. They were promoting this for a long while, and you can customize, make your own boss. They offer a bunch of wardrobe that you don't actually have in the normal character customization, and the idea is you're supposed to be able to, make a character, upload it, have people vote on it, and see, and you can also then download said ones and go ahead and use those characters, pre-made ones, into your personal game. Uh, so of course, my brain went, I need Jason Statham back. Let's do it.
Jason.
They they don't have his they don't have a male English voice,
Uh,
like Cockney accent. They have a clearly English female voice, but they do not have the male. I'm like, "Ah, you gotta be kidding me." So then I went ahead and looked at their what some of the I've fiddled around with the character creator. I do this every time when I do a character creator. I play around with it for a long while, realize I really, really appreciate it and really like it. I don't have the patience or the artistic talent to make my dream come true.
yeah.
Uh, and so then I immediately just look at other people's works and try to see which one I want to play as. In my brain, I know what there's a character I do have to make. I'm not gonna say it in case if I can make it in the future. I want it to be like a surprise, but I do have a dream character to make. I think it'd be fitting really great to see this character in the Saints Row universe. But as far as what they have pre-made by other people, the current number one is Shaggy from Scooby Doo.
Mm,
Uh, it's a very well done Shaggy. They have everything from John Wick to Keanu Reeves' character from Cyberpunk, because this game lets you have prosthetic limbs and of varying sorts. Like you have multiple, you can have single leg, either leg, both. You can have them different materials. Same with your hands. So they really went all out with this, kind of style when it comes to that. And but you have everything from like She-Hulk to like and like Starfire from Teen Titans, like the original comic version. You have different famous people did a lot of celebrities, so there's a bunch of them out there. Yeah, it's pretty impressive. I did try to download, I'm like, "You know what? How dumb would it be to have John Wick? Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and download John Wick." And for some reason, it did snag, so I couldn't quite get it to work. So then, I'm like, after playing in the boss factory for a couple hours, I'm like, "I'm just gonna go default main person then, because I really wanna get this game started." And they do a good job of, making it just as silly as I remember. Uh, you're you're essentially working for the, a mercenary corporation, and you're hunting down some guys, and it has a very Starship Trooper vibe mixed with one of the DLCs for Saints Row the Third was a action movie, like a space action movie. So you're in Mars, and it kind of it felt like it was almost an homage to that in a sense. And yeah, it's just a basic tutorial, but the dialogue is witty enough, meaning that it's passable, but it's that cheap Saints Row humor, and it's nothing special. It's no Shakespeare. It's not going to make you ponder anything. It is just pure dumb fun. Uh, and it's the characters that you come across. They're you know they're okay for now. I haven't, it's like I played a handful of hours, but I haven't really gone too in depth. I just did a lot of random stuff, just murdering and silliness. I'm really looking forward to. I'm going to be playing with a couple of different people this weekend. Uh, I at least have two people lined up, and you said you're probably going to be buying the game. So if that's the case, then I have three different people that I'll probably end
hey
up
man.
playing the intro for every single one of them.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I was gonna ask you after the podcast when you wanted to play because I'll go by and grab it tomorrow.
So
If you're ready to play sometime this weekend, but we can talk about that
yeah.
later.
So yeah, that's the thing is, I am enjoying my time with it, but then again, I did not come into this thing expecting it to be pushing the boundaries or making things really different from, no, I came in knowing that this is just a dumb fun game. It's and so people, as far as the reviews go, it seems to be just getting like, sixes or sevens, probably
Yeah,
mostly, more. And it's an okay game. I'm like, yeah, it is, but if you're playing it with the right people, or if you're having a good time, then who cares?
There
You
are
know, it's
some games that like that uh, to me, I feel even if I paid full price, I didn't pay enough for. There are some games that I feel like that about, and I think that it's okay to, if you feel that way, to pay full price for a game that you otherwise wouldn't if it's in the same series, um, because you just like the previous iteration so much, and it meant so much to you, and you had so much fun with it. I paid a lot of money for Soul Calibur 6. The game's pretty fun, but it is probably not worth what I paid for it. I did play it for a pretty good number of hours, but I just remembered having so much fun with Soul Calibur 2 back in the day that,
that's a huge difference.
yeah, it's a huge difference. But I was getting back into games and I was like, you know what? This one's coming out and I just want to jump back in uh, and try to support this as best I can. Um, sometimes the games, the new one's just not as good as the old one. But if you want to signal to them that you want them to keep making these, then you got to buy it. That's the best way to vote is with your wallet. So yeah, like I've definitely done that before too, um, and they can't all be tens, but if it's good enough and it scratches that itch, then I think it's worth it.
See, for me, I was willing to, because I knew I was going to be buying this game, uh, and I was only going to be buying one copy,
Yep.
but I have two consoles, and so I wanted to give them a little extra, and I went ahead and paid for the $100 version. So
Oh
what it does
right.
is it comes with a couple DLCs, some extra packs, skins and whatnot. But then it comes with their season version of the season pass, which if it's as fun as even if it's pretty close to Saints Row the third, those I remember two out of the I think three DLCs, and those are good. I enjoyed my time with them. Um, the other thing is it came with Saints Row the third remastered, and I had not played the remastered version, but I'm like, hey, by the end of the day, worst case scenario, I get to play Saints Row the Third again. And I remember I have not heard that it was like a bad remastered. I didn't hear like sometimes when things get redone, they
Mm,
like GTA definitive edition or whatever. That's been a hot mess. This one I've not heard any bad things about. So I'm like, okay, cool. At the end of the day, I'll at least get to replay Saints Row the Third again, and I'll be okay with that,
yeah.
and it'll be me and my spouse. We'll play through that, and we'll have a good time. So that's
Yeah.
kind of what we're looking at.
I mean, you said you paid $100 for it. I was embarrassed to say that I paid 90 for Soul Calibur 6. Maybe I should still be embarrassed to say that, but anyway, you beat me. You beat me. You paid more. I've never paid. I don't think I've ever paid that much for a game, but there are
I got
definitely
two
some
games,
games.
so two
You
and
did.
DLC.
Yeah, that was the thing is I did get like the ultimate, season pass or whatever for Soul Calibur. It was still kind of too much to pay, I think, but because eventually they did, I didn't get like season 2 or something like that. I was like, for $90, day one, I should get the freaking moon, guys. But it is what it is. But there are some games that I would definitely pay more for. I actually considered getting the all the DLC. It's not even out yet, but all the DLC for Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I think it's like 25 or $30, but I was just like, nah, I'm not. I'm not gonna do that yet. I'm sure it'll be worth it eventually, but I was like, nah, I'm gonna put that off. But I'm,
If you
I'm
really want to burn your money, just go ahead and get whatever the latest version of DOA is, and all the skins for that.
yeah. I mean,
Um,
I was like, I like this game. I don't know if I like it that much. This was pretty early on. This was a couple hours into playing it that I saw that, and then I was like, but then after about 20 hours, probably about 10 hours in, I was like, I could see myself buying the DLC, but then after 20, I was like, I think I'm back to waiting and not doing that. At least not yet. But because there's just so much else to play. There's just so much else to play, and that's already like a 50-hour game, minimum. So adding another 20 hours onto it, as we are. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm eyeballing the end of the year game of the year discussions and trying to get lined out what I actually want to, talk about and play before then. And there's just, there's not gonna be enough time to finish, most of the stuff that I actually want to finish. So anyway, but I can totally understand paying $100 for a game. There will probably come a time fairly soon where I will have to do that, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, like I said, for me, it was like I wouldn't have done it unless it was the game that I really wanted. I mean, and I have so many good nostalgic memories for Saints Row the Third. I know that in the end, granted, I'm paying, in theory, you're paying, an extra $40, because the base game itself is 60. So, and that comes with the it's a PS, or I bought it on the PS4, but it's also the PS5 version. So I don't have to worry about paying anything extra to upgrade. It's just straight up $60 for both. At least that's the way they had it originally advertised. And so for an extra $40, I get all the DLC coming out, and which is supposed to be three of them, I believe. And then I'm getting the Saints Row third remastered. I'm like, okay, that's good enough for me. So I felt it was the way I priced it in my head, it justified itself. Um,
Yeah, man.
but honestly, there's not many games coming out that I'm really holding my breath on either, because I'm half expecting all the new games to come out to get bumped.
Oh yeah.
And, the few games that are like, nothing has I honestly don't remember a game that right now that I'm like, "Oh, I can't wait for this one to come out." Like I said, Miles Morales is coming out with the PC towards the end, and last podcast, you were like, "Yeah, you think you're gonna be playing Spider-Man?" I'm like, "I'm probably not gonna be playing it, but I probably will end up buying the bundle, the complete edition for PC, just so I can have it looking way better than my PS4."
Yeah, yeah. I think that there's going to be some surprises. I mean, there's some big name games on my list for me. Bayonetta 3, obviously, God of War 2. Those are two that I want to try to get my hands on. Um, but there's a lot of indie games that I think are going to be coming out and kind of being like, dang, that's a cool looking game, or that's a weird idea. I really want to get my hands on that. One that I just saw uh, currently planned to come out in November is a game called Ixion. It's a city builder, but it's set on a space station in space as you try to make it to somewhere specific or something. But that seemed like a pretty cool game. And then there's a bunch of other like little things that I know are gonna take up some time. That and getting back to Elden Ring, I put 18 hours in, but I did want to try to get, you know, more than any other game, I want to try to get closer to finishing that because I think it's pretty important as far as game releases this year. But yeah, there's just a lot to play. But anyway, so that's pretty much what we've been playing. So we'll switch over to what we've been watching. And I think Joe, you have been watching something on Hulu. Is that right?
Yeah, so the long and the short of it is my coworker decided, when Prey had come out, the latest Predator movie, all the guys in the office were talking about it, and I didn't have Hulu. So one of my buddies was like, "Yeah, just go ahead, take mine.
Yeah.
Go ahead and watch it." I'm like, "Okay, great. I'll get around to that." And then I discovered they have Steven Universe on there. So I've yet to watch Prey, but I've been watching the crap out of Steven Universe. It's I can have it on, and it turns out it keeps a 2-year-old's attention pretty good. And it's like, my youngest also, just like, they both stop and they'll watch it. um my son, it's like, we'll start to sing some of the lyrics to the opening theme song, and as I'm watching it, I'm like, I forgot for the first handful of episodes, like quite a few episodes, they're not really connected in the way like you would think a normal story would be. So they're all like individual, and you can really watch them almost out of order. It really doesn't matter. Um, and it's just like part of it's like is is he really the main character like special? Are they on the spectrum? You don't understand. You're like, I don't because the way they draw the characters is very goofy at times. I'm like, are they meaning to be offensive? It's like it's really hard to tell. And then it's like, and it was a mystery for a long while. And then there's a tipping point where like just things start being like, oh, there's an actual story here because they've always alluded to it. It's like a darker, almost an ominous theme in the background, just standing there in the distance. And some of the individual episodes, like quite a few of those early episodes, they're almost a horror like film base. Just things are creepy, dark. Like you don't know what's going on, and it's very much a like I don't know enough about horror films, but I'm like this can easily be an homage to something, and I would believe it. Uh, Luckily, my children don't seem to care about it. It's nothing like gory or graphic or nothing like that. It's just more of a mood tone piece,
Mm.
and but also it's still super funny and just overall just delightfully a joy to watch. So I recommend if you haven't given it a shot, uh, yeah, it's just go ahead. It's quirky, it's weird. It's not until later on that it really picks up some real steam, and it goes places. In my opinion, I never did get the chance to finish it because the way the release schedule was when it was first airing, it was really spotty. It's like, yeah, we'll release a small batch of episodes, go dark, release literally one episode a month for a little bit, go dark, and then like it kept on doing that, and then but everything I heard was ended pretty solid, and then they came out with a second season question mark like a couple years like set more into their future.
Ah.
And so my wife and I've done our absolute best to stay in the dark about that. Anything Reddit or posts or anything like just completely you know pass by it. So we just know a character or two design, but other than that we have no idea what's in the current or the later stuff. So yeah, totally recommend watching it again because I'm having a good old time. And they're short episodes. They're super short. If you liked anything of those old cartoons like Johnny Bravo or like Cow and Chicken, it's kind of that short form factor. So
All right. Wow. Yeah, I have heard little bits and pieces about Steven Universe throughout my life, and apparently, yeah, it was something else. It was quite well received by a lot of people. Um, but yeah, that's pretty cool, man. I have been kind of watching. I've been watching Kaguya-sama uh, continually, though I slowed down a bit. So I'm kind of just at the first quarter of season 3, but it's holding up very well. It's really excellent. So I'm just kind of watching that slowly but surely. The other thing, though, that I did watch half of, I'm in the right in the middle of it, is a Netflix movie called The Gray Man. This came out several weeks ago, a month ago, something like that. And it is an action spy movie, and it has Chris Evans,
oh,
and
that's this one. Okay,
yeah, it has Chris Evans as the bad guy, and gosh, his name just escaped my brain.
Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling. I knew there was a G, and Ryan Gosling as the good guy. Um, it's just a an action spy movie where they're assassins and they're trying to kill each other for various reasons. Um, and I'm only about halfway through it. It's pretty good. Um, I had heard this movie was like big budget, theater type movie, and so that's kind of what made me want to watch it because I didn't know what it was, and then I heard that and I was like, okay, maybe I'll turn it on. Um, it is so to me the Netflix big, you know, big budget movies, there's something about them that doesn't feel like a regular studio in the theater big budget movie. It's I call them like A minus movies, or maybe yeah, I would say like an A minus movie, where it's like, man, this has got some really great action, and they're definitely paying for the stars, but there's some like little bit that is just that I feel like it's just missing, and I don't get that. I didn't used to get that from rented movies. Um, so to me, it's a Netflix type phenomenon, and I can't put my finger on it, but that is sort of what I feel like this movie is happening again with this movie. There's a Chris Hemsworth movie that came out a couple of years ago, where he's trying to protect a kid or something like that, and then there's uh, Bright. That was one of the first ones. Those had the same feeling, and they spent a ton of money on those. But there's some aspect of them that, to me, just struck me as like A minus quality. I don't know what it is, but that's here again. Regardless, it is pretty good. The story's pretty good. The action's pretty cool so far. Um, but anyway, it's all right. I don't hate it, and I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how it shakes out. See if it's going to be any good in the long run.
Yeah, it makes sense. The Russo brothers were tied with, Avengers and Captain America, Winter Soldier, and stuff like that. So, of course, Chris Evans is right there.
Hmm.
Uh,
Ready to scoop
you
up
know,
that paycheck.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's you make friends with people, right? And Russo brothers aren't bad. I rather like their stuff. They're not they're not necessarily groundbreaking or anything like that, but at the same time, they're always a solid. Um, they're a solid team for directing, so it's you can generally enjoy what they do.
Yeah, yeah. I did have a thought that maybe Gosling and Evans should actually switch roles in this movie. To me, at the beginning, I was kind of like, I don't know. I think Gosling should be the bad guy and Evans should be the good guy. Um, but I think that Gosling would have to go to a different place than maybe he's used to. He's kind of in a lot of movies. Gosling does a really good job playing something of a blank slate sort of character. Um, and I think that as a bad guy, he'd have to do a lot more. Um, but anyway, it was kind of a weird thought. I don't know if that's going to hold true through the end because they are doing a pretty good job, each in their own right. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Well, they made Chris Evans wear that stupid mustache, and that's what I know this movie for the most right now from the trailers. That's why the moment you mentioned it, I'm like, oh yeah, that one, that's the one,
yeah, they make fun
because
of him for it in the movie. They make fun of that mustache, and I'm kind of like, okay, well, all right.
they should have made fun of Henry Cavill, The Witcher, for having a stupid mustache in the Mission Impossible movie.
Oh
It
yeah,
was Fallout. It was such a bad mustache, and his character was like, I like Henry Cavill in quite a few things. I thought, um, oh, was it not The Man from Nowhere, but he had that spy movie that I really enjoyed as well. It's based off an old TV show. Um, and yeah, it's just but the whole reason why the reshoots of that Superman or
yeah,
the Justice League is because he had that mustache from the Mission Impossible, and they had to CG it out. uh no, it's they're like, oh wow, the guy with the mustache, he's the bad guy, what a surprise.
yeah.
It's just like,
That's a good
slight
point. Yeah,
spoiler, but I mean, his character was so like one dimensional, really wasn't anything special. That was and that's like that Mission Impossible I felt was the weakest one, uh, in a long time. Like I'm like, oh yeah, because they were only progressively getting better and better as far as action and adventure and all that.
mm,
Like and then all of a sudden this one, I'm like, this one dropped massively. But at the same time, in my opinion, but then you look at it like best, financially the best one ever. Most people have seen. I'm like, okay, well, it shows what I know.
That's the one where they go up the tower in Dubai, right?
No, well, no, Dubai was like 4 or something like that.
I think
Um,
that's the one that I remember being the best.
the Dubai one was directed by the people who did give me a second. The Incredibles, because you can tell that with between the music and the kind of that comedic style, that's where they started getting a little more silly.
Yeah.
Because that was after, I think that was 4. Um, because 3 was that really dark one with the bombs in their heads. I can't remember the villain who he's no longer with us, and I feel bad that I can't remember his name.
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Or Hoffman, yes. Yes, totally. So, like, that was an excellent film, but then after that, they took a tonal shift, and they started making them a little bit more, lighthearted and, fun for the family kinda deal. But, yeah, I felt that Fallout was not good.
I remember seeing
Basically
that, and I remember being like, "That was good. That was fun." But I was a little bit underwhelmed by there was a helicopter flying sequence at the end, helicopter chase, right? Uh, at the end of that movie, and I was like,
probably.
"This is something that is one. This is one of those things that sounds really cool when you're scripting it up and you're writing about it, but
It was
then,
the one in the snow. Yep,
yeah,
yep, that was so dumb.
but when you actually film it and you're like, you got these two helicopters like chasing after each other, and they're not like attack helicopters really, and they're, I don't know, maybe it could have been shot better, but I was like, this is sort of weak, especially to end your movie on. On paper, it seems like a cool thing, but in reality, it didn't really work all that well. So I kind of see what you're
Well,
saying there, but otherwise,
just
I did enjoy that
generically
movie.
making a mustache of bad, that guy's the bad guy, and making it a very awkward mustache, you know?
Yeah,
It's
as
just, I don't know, it's evil Spock, right? Anyone with a goatee is obviously the evil side, which, whatever.
yeah. What does that say about Doctor Strange? Uh, yeah,
He's
that's
he's every version, right? So,
yeah, for real. But anyway, so that's pretty much what we've been watching. And I think with that, the pod has been cast. Is there anything that you would like to say, Joe? What have you learned from today's episode?
all right. Well, I learned that we should really just speak with our wallets and don't support the companies for making poor decisions and jacking up our prices. And always be wary because they always have an ulterior motive.
Amen. That's true. All right. Well, that's gonna do it for us. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll catch you next time.
Yep. Take it easy, guys.
Bye.